Gotten the areas that you have, because
I didn't know if she had
yeah,
intentions to.
that's.
I tried calling her in
I
the
talked to
office and
Brian
she
while we
didn't
went
answer,
through it.
so I.
He goes, I need an official documentation
Right.
to get done. I'm like, okay, so next time I.
Okay. Well, I didn't, I just don't want.
Heck, yeah.
Yep, no, that's in there.
Yeah,
Yep, yep. Nope, that's why it's not done.
We could put temporary ones up.
I could talk to him about that.
We're good?
Because if there's not a sign, they're gonna wanna run it.
We're good.
Yep.
All right. Good evening, everyone. At this time, I would like to call to order the Public Works and Safety Committee on 12/17 at 5:02 p.m. If you would, roll call. Alderman Engelhardt.
Here.
Scott Kroger.
Here.
Chief Renz.
Here.
And Eileen Madden, I'm here. And will you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This meeting was published as required by the Wisconsin open meeting laws. And I'm looking for an approval of the minutes of October 16th, 2018.
Move to approve.
And I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, discussion of projects. Waukesha Water.
Sure. No updates from this. The latest I heard was today we got notification that we'll either get a set of plans to review later in the week or next week. Once we do our review, then it goes back to the city of Waukesha. But that is the latest kind of comments that we have on that project right now.
Okay, very good. And Bay Lane Reconstruction.
Sure. Bay Lane Reconstruction, we are moving forward. I think over the last couple of months, we worked out that we are not doing the connection to Bellevue and Bay Lane, so that will be out. But we are moving forward with those plans. The next thing we do, once we finalize the plans, it will be constructed next year. So again, that road will be constructed next year. We're probably looking at somehow to split the road during construction phasing because we also have a school and we have those baseball fields being used. So what we're probably going to try to do is stage the construction while we're doing all north of the road, north portion of the road at one point where people can still access the school and still access baseball fields, and then maybe south, or flip it around. But that is the plan of attack that we're looking into right now.
How much does that overlap school year then? Do you know yet?
We don't know yet.
Okay.
So, but again, this is where the details that we're getting into right now for that project.
All righty, and Hillendale Reconstruction.
Well, that's going to be on later today. I think there's a lot of people here for that, so we'll
We'll put that one off for a little
we'll
bit.
put that off to where it is.
Okay.
So,
All right, unfinished business, Forest Glen subdivision drainage.
yeah, everything we have turned back to the HOA group. They have not gotten back to me. I'm kind of just keeping it on there. If they reach out to me, I'll give you an update, but nothing has come with that. And then the water main assessment stuff, we're just going to defer that to January.
Oh,
Because
okay.
large crowd here trying to get through the other stuff, I figured first tonight.
Exactly. All right, discussion update and possible action on new business. Request for curb cuts at City Hall for snowmobiles.
Okay, I brought the chief involved with this one. So from my understanding, at one point, there was some discussion when the design and construction of the new city hall that a request was put in to put curb cuts in to allow snowmobiles to go up and down Racine. This has been reached by Dave here. I believe he's here as well, and he can talk about it a little bit more. Nothing in the plans show that we had any curb cuts in there, which is why there is no curb cuts put in there. I provided those both to him and then the alderman. And then at one point too, we reached out to the chief and say, hey, is there any even snowmobile routes along this way, or is it even legal? And he can kind of give his little talk now about that as well. So.
I know that trail's been there for a lot of years, but Technically, if you read the state statute, that trail is not a legal trail. One, it's not approved by the Department of Transportation. And in order for it to be legal, snowmobiles cannot travel against traffic at nighttime. And there would have to be a barrier up between the road and that trail to prevent headlights from snowmobiles shining on to the roadway. And obviously that is not the case. So to does it pay to put curb cuts into a driveway where to support a trail that is not approved by DOT? It doesn't seem like it'd be the right thing to do. But snowmobile traffic is prohibited on the other side of the road because of the bike path there, because we don't want them ripping up that bike path with their skis and stuff. And, to have it on the other side of the road is an alternative, but technically it's not a legal approved snowmobile trail according to the state.
One other thing too, since it's not put in, it's not on anything, if you want to do this, this will result in a change order for that project. No contractor is going to do this work for free. Mm-hmm. And then if you want to move forward with that, someone has to decide how you want to pay for that, because I can tell you right now, it will be a change order. How much that is, I do not know, but I just wanted to be upfront with you.
How many curves would be subject?
Two.
Two.
You have to be on one on each side.
Yeah.
So I have
So
another
it's basically
question.
this entrance out here?
Just that, it's the one right there.
So, as we have a brand-new parking lot, and it's my understanding from all the snowmobilers I know, and many of them are my family, a lot of the new machines have extremely radical skates on them that can grab. What would the sleds? Studs. Okay. Well, some do. A lot of the new ones do. Well, regardless, there are some that have them, and my concern is our new parking lot. How long do you think it would sustain that kind of traffic?
You're probably kind of going back to the idea of why we don't put them on we don't allow them on the trails. We don't allow them on the trails because we don't want to rip up our trail. It's the same concept. Okay. It's brand new asphalt. You don't want to rip it up.
Okay. Okay. So I'm looking for a motion.
What motion do we need?
Well, to either do this for them or deny. I'll make a motion to deny. I'm very concerned about a lot of things, the legality, you're not allowed to, I'm sorry, Dave, but you're not allowed to talk at this one, right? I'm the guy that put it on the agenda. All right, Dave. All right, come on, you can come up to the microphone.
Dave, just check to make sure it's on. There's an on button. Just check first.
Do I need to second that before you entertain anything, or can you
No, we'll
talk
let him
first?
talk first. All good. And just state your name and address, please, for the record.
Sure. My name is David Talby, and I live at South 75, West 186, 87, Kingston Drive, Muskego. Been a resident here since 1973. We've had a trail along Racine Avenue for over 40 years. We were using the other side of the road during that period of time, and the city decided to put in a bike trail without telling us about it. We never got informed about it. We found out about it when the bulldozers were out there tearing up the grass on the side of the road. Now, we didn't make a big stink about it. We just moved to the other side of the road. Now, we've had cooperation from other municipalities and other agencies in facilitating snowmobiling. Specifically, when Highway 36 was rebuilt, we worked with the state planners, and they removed the median where the trail crosses Highway 36. No problem. It was done. It was implemented into the drawings, and it's there that way today. We also got cooperation from the Waukesha County, when they were doing the rebuilding of Janesville Road. I worked with the engineers on that project, and we got a curb cut where the trail comes out on Lincoln Avenue. And if you wish to look at what we're requesting, you can look right across from Lincoln Avenue and see what we're talking about. Essentially, there are three types of curbing that you can deal with. You've got a high back curb, which is currently what's there. You got a mountable curb, which you have in all the subdivisions, and then you've got a curb cut, which gives you the same effect as a mountable curb, only it's a little more convenient to work with. The curb cut can be implemented now for this season without any problems due to the fact that they have contractors that have concrete cutting machinery that cuts vertically and horizontally. I received 2 bids from 2 contractors, one in West Bend and one in Menominee Falls, and one contractor gave me a price of $450. The other one gave me a price of $500. To give you some perspective as to what we're requesting. The curb cut that we're requesting would be perpendicular to the driveway to facilitate crossing that in a safe manner. We're all about trying to find a safe way for people to enjoy their sport without creating any problems. And this would go along with that in terms of allowing the machines to get across a active driveway without running into an automobile. 2 years ago, a friend of mine lost his life over a situation like that. There was a situation where there was an active county road, and it came around a 90-degree corner, and a car got there before my friend did, and he ended up with 5 broken ribs. 2 years later, he died of an aneurysm caused by the impact of his body hitting the side of that machine, that automobile rather. So I have a vested interest in worrying about safety issues, and this is one of them. Now, we're asking for a relatively minor modification of the plans. I did think that we were covered originally because I looked at these plans, and the curb details for these plans call for a sidewalk to be behind a high back curb and a mountable curb where you have grass or dirt. Now, even though that is correct, there was a detail at the end of City Hall building that said that all of the curbing was supposed to be high back. That was missed by myself, and this is something I'll have to take the blame on. However, that still doesn't take away from the fact that we would like some cooperation from the city in this regards on this particular issue. That's about it.
Okay, thanks, Dave. And when you speak about safety, that's huge to me because I watch numerous snowmobiles going up and down Racine Avenue. And if they start cutting through our parking lot, we have meetings here many nights a week. Many nights a week. And that's when I see everybody out. How do we, and I'm sure the chief has an issue with that as well. I'm worried about what it does to the pavement. I'm worried about human traffic walking across the parking lot while they're cutting through.
Well, the snowmobile would have to stay in the road right away because we have by state law access to any state or road that's already on the books. And in terms of control of people, the trail would be marked with stop signs on either side of that driveway.
Yeah, and okay, I understand your concerns. I hope you understand mine. I guess do you have anything further, either one of you? No?
I'd like to ask the chief again you said this is not a legal right-of-way for snowmobiles to begin with. Can you expand on that, and how would they ever be granted that?
Well, it's been that way for a long time, but technically at nighttime, like it is now, any snowmobile that's traveling southbound against traffic is operating illegally on that roadway or on that right-of-way on the highway.
So on one side of the road, it'd have to be a one-way if it was allowed.
Right. They're supposed to travel with traffic, and the speed limit is what the roadway is. And so, you know, at night, they should be on the opposite side of the road, but that side of the road is no snowmobiling because of the bike path.
And we prohibit, what part of Racine do we prohibit?
There's a prohibition on Racine north of Janesville up to Hillendale. And then we have a number of other roads that are prohibited, Woods Road and different things.
And what would we be adding into the prohibitive? Just this area in front of City Hall, or what would be alternative routes for them?
Well, right now, the ordinance does not prohibit on Racine Avenue. So that would
Anywhere
have to be.
from here south is all open right now as far as the ordinance?
Yeah, from Janesville south is all open,
Okay.
except for on that side of the road on the bike path, walking path.
Okay, so what, if this was a prohibited area, then what would be the alternative route for them?
There would not be an alternative route to get, I'm assuming you want the trail because you want to get up to the lake. Correct?
Yes.
And access, yeah. And I don't know that there would be an alternative route.
My understanding of the state law is you are correct on the one-way issue. However, if we did not mark the trail, the snowmobiles could still, by state law, travel that same route without signage, without any controls, and without any support of the snowmobile club. If the trail disappears from a marking standpoint, that doesn't stop people from traveling in that same route.
Correct.
So yes, technically you're correct on the one-way business, but if we don't mark that trail, you'll have no support or interference from the club, and the club is all about trying to allow people to enjoy the sport in a safe manner. We've got people in our club that have been teaching the safety course for over 25 years. Got an award from the state of Wisconsin for his efforts as a non-paid volunteer for teaching people a proper way to use a snowmobile. Now, we're all about facilitating that type of usage of people that, there's hundreds of people in the community that like to snowmobile, and the biggest problem that you've got is sometimes the young people that don't know the laws, don't follow the laws. The old folks, the old codgers like myself will do so, but the young guys, they're full of piss and vinegar, and they like to go, and sometimes they'll break the law. Well, hopefully our intervention will help control that from a standpoint of allowing people the reminder of signages like stop signs or cautions or things of that nature. So yes, you're technically correct on the one-way business, but I think if we abandon that particular trail, you're going to have no controls whatsoever, and the people are legally allowed to travel that road by state law. So, you know, it's your choice. We're asking for a $450 to $500 upcharge. I've got one contractor that can come in from Menominee Falls for $450 and another one from West Bend for $500. Now, we're not talking a lot of dollars here, and frankly, I wished I would have been involved sooner, and maybe I could have got those implemented as part of the plans to begin with. But we're looking for a little assistance. We got help from the state of Wisconsin. They actually eliminated an entire median where our trail crosses the boulevard, and we got help from the county in putting a curb cut in on Lincoln Avenue where the trail comes off the lake. So we were assuming or hoping that after 51 years in this community that we could get some help from you guys to make our sport easier and safer.
So it's my understanding, again, from my relatives, that I've got some relatives that snowmobile all over the state. It seems, and I live in the country, we have trails all over through our farmland. Wouldn't it be safer for all of us if you did like down to Crowbar over and back up to the lake?
As the city grows, it becomes more difficult to accommodate snowmobiling from a route that it is approved by your landowners. And we've got approximately 44 landowners that we have permission from to use their property for the enjoyment of the sport. And it isn't always easy to recreate roads, especially in the northern third of the city where the population density is the highest. The farmland usually is not too difficult, but the closer you get to civilization, the more difficult it is to move things around. Now, that particular route has been there in excess of 44 years that I can vouch for, and I'm not aware of any particular problems or related accidents along that route, even though the chief's right, and there is a one-way provision that's part of a marked trail.
Only at night. During the daylight, it's not a problem. It's only at night where it's illegal.
But we're looking for your help. We're looking for your support. I can remember the cowboy days of snowmobiling in the early days, and people rode all over the place. It was the clubs that basically tried to train and work with young people to make it a safer sport. And our job, our main function within the city is to allow people to enjoy a sport safely. That would be the akin to having a gun safety course for the people that shoot trap or shoot with a gun. So, you know, we're an advocate for the sport, and we put our time and effort into marking things to make it work better.
I'm not anti-snowmobile, I'm just telling you what the law is.
Yeah, I'm not either, but I have, I think, legitimate concerns about the many people that are coming in and out of City Hall at night, and the traffic I'm concerned about. I've seen it tear up our hayfields. If it can tear up our hayfield, it can tear up the parking lot. We excuse that. We plant more hay over it, it grows back eventually, but it takes a couple of years, and this parking lot's a lot more expensive to fix than our hayfield.
We're not touching the parking lot. We're asking to cross the driveway.
Well, just
the driveway.
Driveway.
Yeah.
I see.
We're asking for a curb cut perpendicular to the driveway only. We're not going to be traveling on the parking surface whatsoever.
They'll be up on the right-of-way. They'd be up on the right-of-way at the driveway.
We have an adequate margin out there for them to stay on the grass area then? Is that what we're saying, or?
Yeah, well, according to state law, they can ride on the right-of-way as
The
long as
right-of-way includes that, yeah.
Right.
So that's where they would be.
Yeah,
But technically, they're illegal at night doing that if they're headed the wrong direction,
right.
which has been going on for years.
Ever.
But if
See,
the
that's-
trail doesn't get marked, they can still do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying,
Yeah.
Dave.
Why don't you make a little hand drawing for people up there so they know exactly where it is?
We have a map,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, because you're saying they're coming through the parking lot.
Well,
Right.
I understand.
Somebody didn't know what he was watching.
Well, I understand that, but I also know when you've got, and I've seen on Racine Avenue numerous sleds out at a time, and they pretty much spread out when there are a bunch of them. So it would not surprise me if they wound up in the parking lot. Enforce the law.
I had 3 conversations with the mayor in regards to the impact of the new construction as to how it would affect snowmobiling. One of the 3 conversations was related to issues of how close the paved surface was going to get to the right-of-way, because the machines travel in the road right-of-way. You've got, on Racine Avenue, you got 120-foot right-of-way, even though the surface is not paved anywhere near that wide. So it's an issue that has been ongoing for, like I say, over 44 years that I know of, and we would like to continue to do so with this minor request.
So Chief, would we be technically approving something illegal?
Well, just because you put curb cuts in, I don't, you're not necessarily approving, snowmobiling on it. People could walk on those curb cuts, I imagine, if they're walking on the right of way, but.
I suppose the technical end of that is it's only illegal at night going the wrong way.
Right. Yeah.
Otherwise, it is legal.
Yeah,
What
during the
Dave's saying
daytime,
is true.
it's legal, so.
So we really can't enter into that.
It's only at nighttime where it's illegal and, whether you cut those curbs for daytime traffic or nighttime traffic,
Well, there's no doubt the city is growing, and it is going to continue to grow. I mean, there's not much we can do about that. But at the same time, it seems to me like the joy of snowmobiling is to be able to actually ride. So I don't understand the concern of going an extra half a mile down to go around to get up on the lake and keeping, in my mind, things safer.
I'm
in
not
the
following
city.
your logic.
So if you go down, if you're just you're riding, you want to ride. That's the joy of it, is riding that sled. So if you go down to Crowbar and over and come back to get to the lake, that shouldn't be a big problem. We're going through downtown where there's a lot of traffic and a lot of concerns. It appears that it is.
Well, currently, there is no way to accomplish that task. The right-of-way that heads out to Crowbar is prohibited from any motorized traffic. It's a bike path and a walking path is all that's allowed by Wisconsin Electric. They still own the right-of-way. So you wouldn't be able to come up with your idea, because right now, currently, you'd run into that problem right off the bat.
But there's a lot of farmland there.
Pardon?
There's a lot of farmland there.
No, you have to understand what physical restrictions snowmobilers have to overcome to be able to facilitate that idea. You can either run within a road right-of-way, or you can run along an electric company right-of-way. Right now, the road right-of-way is not much of an option, and certainly the electric company right-of-way is not an option at all.
See, and there's a reason for all those things. There's a reason that it's an issue. I mean, I can list 100 of them. I see, we've had very little snow the last few years, but I see the sleds out, and they're tearing something up. They're turning it into mud instead of snow, instead of waiting for that 6-inch base they're supposed to have. Anybody
that spends the kind of money that snowmobiles cost nowadays is an idiot to be doing mudmobiling. Mudmobiling is done by the young people that don't care what they do to their machines.
I truly do understand that, but how do we say it's okay for the people to have common sense and stop the people that don't? How many, we don't have the tax dollars to hire that many more officers right now either.
Well, I'd like to point out that the city had a snowmobile patrol, and they decided to get out of the snowmobile patrol business. They sold their trailer, they sold their two snowmobiles, so we don't get any support from the police department anymore, like we used for God knows how many years.
What do you have to say about that, Chief?
We had so many years where we weren't getting snow, and if we did do snowmobile patrol, it was maybe once or twice a year, and our snowmobile was, to use a snowmobile that infrequently is difficult. You're going through batteries and having other issues with them, so we just disbanded snowmobile patrol.
Makes sense.
In other words, it wasn't very prosperous in enterprise.
So.
Okay. Well, we have to move on, and I'm sorry, but I have to stay with my no vote.
I didn't second it yet.
Nope, you didn't. That's why I'm looking at you.
If I don't second it, what happens?
It dies.
Well, I'm going to let it die.
Coward. Okay, I'm sorry, but your request has been denied.
Oh, I didn't think a vote was taken.
I voted. I made a motion to reject it. John,
We don't.
he didn't.
They don't have the whole committee here, and
There's only
The
two of
actual,
us.
the vote on the motion wasn't taken that I'm aware of.
motion,
Just-
I didn't
John
second
just
the motion,
voted.
so there can't be a vote.
Pardon?
I did not second the motion, so there can't be a vote.
Oh, okay, so it's a motion without a second.
It's a motion without a second. That defers it if anybody could ever get it back on the agenda, right?
Yeah, you can bring it back. I mean, I don't,
Should I stay here to answer any questions that the committee might have? What do you suggest?
You've done a pretty good job of explaining, and I
yeah,
appreciate
I
that,
don't,
Dave.
I don't, yeah, I don't think so. I think
Okay.
you were pretty, you explained it very well.
All right, thank you.
Okay, sorry. All right. Hillendale Reconstruction, 30% planned recommendation.
I'll go. All right, we're gonna start off. I know that a lot of you are here for this, and so we're gonna just try to be orderly. Let me get through the whole thing. I think then the committee will get you through, and if Eileen can run through of doing it, but if we get through this in an orderly manner, then everyone gets their voice out here, and we don't have people just shouting out from the crowd with everything. So, how I want to first start off is so the Hillendale Drive reconstruction. We had a public information meeting on September 27th, 2018. Besides that meeting, just to kind of give you an idea of how many people have turned in stuff, I believe we had a total of 63 comment cards that came in for this project. Great. Guys, I mean, I've done bigger projects like 10 times and I've gotten 5. So, you know, I want to thank you all for actually showing up for the public information meeting, giving your opinion about it. Kind of even after the fact, more things showed up. So the big thing that was talked about at the meeting to kind of talk about is you got 2 examples to look at. One of the examples was more of a rural cross-section going through there. What that means is what you had there now. Ditches, no curb and gutters, no storm sewer, kind of just a rural kind of feel to it. The other one would be like an urban, kind of what you see on Janesville Road. The reason why we give you 2 is because then I can comment. I got to hear your comments of what you like, what you don't like for this road before we kind of move forward. An urban one would have more storm sewers. It would have curb and gutter. It would cost more, just to let you know. It definitely costs more, both for initially and for the long-term maintenance. Now, both of them, which was probably the more controversial issue, is there was a proposed trail on the west side of the project. So why that proposed trail was there? So back 2017 through 2021, there's a Parks and Conservation Plan. So that plan was put out. When I looked to when we design roads or when we look to do projects, we look at what was all done. So the city as a whole took this long effort going through this parks plan, conservation plan, and one of them was to look at future trails throughout the city of Muskego. Myself as an engineer I've only been here a year and a half. So I kind of look at where the history of all these things were, and it's like, well, holy cow, you guys spent, the whole community, everyone on the council all voted for this. They spent a lot of time of looking where that trail was and doing planned loops through the city of Muskego. If you just do a trail by itself, it costs a lot of money, and it's not really cost effective if then you were going to do a trail with a road. So once we look at doing a road like a reconstruction, that's why the trail's kind of brought up of, oh look, it's part of our plan looped. Let's put it in the project. That's why you guys saw the trail. Why it's also on the west side is from an economic and structural side, doing on the east side and how it slopes off, it would be one of the most expensive trails in the world and no one would ever do it. So that's why it's kind of located on the west side. So to kind of give you just kind of highlights of the thing is, so 70% of the people preferred a rural cross-section for Hillendale with minimal disturbance along the corridor. And then about 78% of you are in opposition to the trail along Hillendale. Just, yeah, 70% prefer a rural cross-section, and then 78% are in opposition of the trail.
So the rural conception is just the way it is?
Yes, but improvements of that. Kind of like make your ditches, when I say your ditches are kind of not up to code, and we get storm sewer or stormwater issues out there, just FYI. So some cases, we would make the ditches a little better, clean them up a little bit. The reason why is because they're not designed to hold the amount of stormwater that they're supposed to be holding. They're just really kind of narrow in the cases of that. It still would be more of like no curb and gutters. It's very similar to what you have, just better looking and up to grade in design standards. All right? So
when you do the rural section.
let me finish before we'll get into this, okay? So, all right. So now you kind of those are the two big issues here. All right. So let's first deal with urban rural kind of like my kind of recommendations. All right. First one. This should be a rural cross section. I don't recommend doing an urban one. One is too costly initially. One, it's way too costly to maintain over time. Now, when I say do a rural run, I don't want to say that we're not going to touch everyone's tree because we have to look at safety. If there's a tree at the middle of an intersection and a person pulls up and can't see one way or another, there's a good chance that tree's coming down for safety concerns. We're also going to look at increasing the ditches for storm sewer. This makes only sense at the time. Now, am I going to try to minimize those impacts for the trees along the way? Yes, I will. Now, the other thing I recommend too is there's certain areas where we have to use a little slightly curb and gutter. And the reason why is this. When I use curb and gutter in certain areas, I don't get to go into your property as much because the slope intercept won't go as far. What that means is I don't have to buy your property, so I want to minimize those impacts of purchasing land from you. Also, in some cases, here's a perfect example. Where the school is, just north of the school, there's 3 properties on the west side, and there are some serious storm sewer water issues there. There's no ditch, and those houses are so close to the road, I cannot figure out how to get a ditch in there. It would be like that ditch would be, you walk out of your house, you'd be in a ditch. So in those areas, I could see how we could do a little bit curb and gutter in those areas. And why we would do it is, one, I don't want to have a ditch that goes into that gentleman's or that lady's front yard so much. And at the same time, too, we'd put some storm sewer in there. It solves the stormwater issues in that area, but at the same time, it wouldn't be curb and gutter for the whole area. It would be in just slightly areas that along the corridor. I think everyone understands what I'm saying here. So I recommend totally the rural cross section. I recommend that in some areas we will have to take a tree down to improve both the ditches for storm sewer and some curb and gutter where we recommend dealing with not purchasing land from the property owners. So it's kind of a hybrid. We'll keep that curb and gutter to a minimum. Again, why? It costs a lot of money. It seriously, to put in curb and gutter costs a lot of money to first initially put it in and to secondary to maintain it. And the thing is this, I think that area, a rural cross section is what's required. I think you all came out and you said what it is, and I agree with you. I think that's what is just needed in that area. All right? So that's the first kind of issue, and I don't think many of you are going to disagree with what I said there. The second one is the trail, all right? And I think that's what you're all there for. So on this trail issue here, again, only been here a year and a half, and I'm just following the guidelines, is what I think needs to do is you need to, if they want to open it up for discussion on the trail back and forth, but it really needs to come down to these committee members to really talk about this trail and how they want to approach it. They were all here when the council voted for this, and then once this approval gets one way or another, it does go to Common Council on January 8th. So again, I'm trying to give everyone, besides this, it has to then get approved either way at council on January 8th for the trail. The other thing too is why I need an answer after January 8th is I don't want to hold our consultants up. So our consultants need to know if they're going to include this design all the way through with the trail or if they're not. So now again, keeping the trail in based off of the guidelines of what it is, I'm leaving that up to the committee members to kind of decide whether or not, because they were here and part of this, and then council should decide whether or not. So I'm done talking, and I'm going to let Eileen decide whether or not to open this up. But the best thing I do is to do this in an orderly manner. Give everyone a time to talk, and then we'll let Eileen run this thing, but just shouting out in the crowd back and forth, it just doesn't help anyone, you know, and I'm happy. I think you all did a great job at the public information meeting. I've talked to you, most of you, when you come in. Just, we want to try to just do this in an orderly manner, and I think that's the best way to do it. So I'm going to let Eileen decide how she wants to run it.
Okay, and we will open it up for comments. So the gentleman with his hand up, if we just ask that you come up to the microphone and speak, and then state your name and address so we can keep track of all the comments. And
John Herman, W191, South 6341, Hillendale Drive, Muskego. My question was, you had the results, you said 70% or 70 people?
70% were preferred cross-section for rural, and 78% are in opposition to the trail.
My only question at this time was, how many were for this path?
The path would
Or
be...
how many were against it?
Well, no, against it is 78% were against the path.
So how many were for it?
Well, whatever the 22%.
22 said yes?
Correct, correct.
Okay, that was my only question.
Yep.
very good, thank you. Is there anybody else that cares to speak? Come on up. Hi.
Hello. Mark Moen. I live at W193S6738 Hillendale Drive. And I'm actually on the east side, so the trail won't have quite as great effect on my home. But I am a bike rider, and I've ridden all around. I've been living in Muskego 18 years, and I've ridden all around this community and have seen the trails go in that you've put in and ride on the roads that have no trails and those that do. And one of the things is I found that riding the trails is extremely hazardous to a person on a road bike. I'm not talking about little tricycles or with my family. But when I'm riding all the cross streets, you were talking about the headlights coming against traffic. No one looks against traffic. If you're on that bike coming and you're coming from that direction and they're getting on the road, they look this way. Most people don't stop. Think of the one by Piggly Wiggly. They pull right out. They're supposed to stop before it. It's just a force of habit. I don't stop, and I'm a bike rider. They pull right out. Then they look to their left. If you're coming from their right, they don't see you. You had better be on your best guard on these trails. Whoever put the trail in on Woods Road has never ridden a bike because it turns 90 degrees at least 2 times to go around obstacles. Who can turn a bike 90 degrees? The one right down here on Woods Road, they went around some water structure or something there. It makes 90 and another 90. All right? If you're on a rider, there's people walking, pushing strollers and running, wearing personal listening devices. I have a bell, I got a big mouth, I scream, I holler, you better look out. They don't move. They don't see you. So it's very unsafe for a person on a road bike and probably a mountain bike to ride those trails. All right? On Janesville Road, you mentioned that, it has sidewalks and a bike trail on the road. All right, if you look at Moreland Road, there's a bike trail, and they put a shoulder in that's wide enough for people to ride a bike. It's much safer for a bike rider to be in the traffic with the cars going in that direction. At cross streets, we can continue because they yield to us. When a car stops on the bike trail at the crossroads, they block the trail. So again, you've got to get around these folks there as well. So I see no reason. The kids cannot ride their bikes down to the school because they don't allow bikes at the school. I grew up, my kids, we took them to school. Yeah, it would have been nice if they could have taken a little trail, but we brought them there or there's busing. So you're putting a trail in for a very, very small amount of people, and it's not even user-friendly. Bike trails through parks, great. Bike trails across big, long country fields, great. The one that runs on the old railroad right-of-way, great. But when you're running down where there's driveways, where there's cutouts, where there's intersections, it's completely not useful, okay?
Thank you. Okay, come on up.
Hi, my name's Bob Panoski, West 193, South 6853, Hillendale Drive. If by chance this goes ahead with this bike path, which the majority don't want, what type of insurance liabilities do us as homeowners have if somebody takes a header on the bike path in front of your house? Because I know in the city of Milwaukee and I think even Waukesha, if somebody trips on the public sidewalk that's in front of your house, you get sued. Is there any information available on that? Whereas if they're out in the roadway and they get hit by somebody or fall, well, then it's the car who hit them or whatever the case might be. It's just,
Yeah, I'm not an attorney, but I know that they're on city property, so I don't know how you could be affected by it, but we would certainly run that by our attorney.
yeah, I mean, it's just one of
Yeah.
the million questions,
Sure.
but,
It's on city easement that's maintained by the city,
Right.
so.
Yeah.
oh.
The
okay. I mean,
trail's maintained by the city, so the homeowner would not,
So in other words, we're not responsible
No.
for snow
no,
shoveling?
you're
or
not even
anything like
responsible
that.
for snow removal.
Okay, if they're on the city trail, city-owned trail, and they're not paying attention, and they run off the city trail, feet into my property, am I responsible then?
That, now you're getting hypothetical that
Well,
a city attorney,
hypothetical,
no, that it's just a
it'll
city
happen,
attorney.
It'll
Right,
happen.
it's a
I'm not
city
saying that, I'm just saying that is something that the city attorney.
Right.
I can't answer that.
Yeah,
And-
okay.
And that's gonna be a city attorney.
I mean, everywhere you look nowadays, I mean, you fart crossways and somebody's suing you, you know, so when they're out on the roadway, it's less chance of them getting through the ditchway and everything else up into your front yard. Another thing is, if this was started to be talked about back in 2011, wouldn't that have been a time to have all the homeowners along that road notified in mail that it was being proposed and get their input from it then? Also, because it might have not ever got to this point. Because I don't think in 2011, the majority of the people that are living there now were there in 2011, and they would have had the same, let's not do this, it's pretty foolish to have this bike path through everybody's front yard, you know. You talked about down more towards on the north end, where the guy, just without curb and gutter, is gonna have the ditch line in his front yard. That must mean they have to take the bike path over his front stoop into his house. I mean, if the yards are so short there. Is the right-of-way for the road on Hillendale 45 feet, quote, from the center of the road to what the city owns or the county or whoever? Or is it 30 feet where our lot line markers are at? Is roughly 30 feet off the center of the road.
I believe it is, I can double check, but I believe it's like 30 feet off the center line. Usually the corridor is 60 feet.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Because unfortunately, I wasn't here for the first meeting. We were
Okay.
out of the state. And it was put around by some people that we know that they got a 45-foot right-of-way. So, I mean, that's another 15 feet closer to the house. Now, if it's 30 feet, that's bad enough. You're still going to have to take down everybody's trees along Hillendale to put that bike path up, you know. And with
Scott, what he may be referring to is the proposed plan that was set out. Some places that
Yeah,
path went quite a ways off.
When you look at again, guys, you gotta understand, it's concept. It's the first time. That's why we just do it. Now, it probably shows in some cases where trying to avoid some trees and stuff like that, the path on different homes go a little bit further back and forth. Now, again, don't try to think of this right now, how far it goes. It's more the fact is, we either want this as a whole or we don't. Let's, hypothetical, I am throwing this out so hypothetical just to let you know. Let's say we move forward with this. Then we can really start talking about how far it goes into a person's property. But I don't want to get into the details of that yet because we're not even talking about that. But once you get through this, then we can really look at, can I mitigate that risk and put it a little bit closer to the road? Everyone's different, but I don't want to do this now individually because we're not even there yet. What needs to decide is whether or not you want to have the path. If the path goes away, that discussion goes away. So there's no point to have that discussion right now. So I'm just going to let you know, it was just a concept of where it was on the plans, just to give everyone a talking point. If I don't show anything, you guys are never going to comment. So I show one thing, you guys all comment. This is how the process works. So.
I mean, that's kind of a odd way to put it out there. You want people's input, but yet you don't have the details.
The cleanest way to do it is if you look where the right-of-way is, it's probably a foot in front of the right-of-way. It's a simple way of just doing it right away. It gives you enough room between there and the roadway to put a ditch in. And that's probably how it was done. Again, it's just a concept way just to get the comments and the stuff flowing. Point to kind of like look at any individual things until we have this big picture, and then we can deal with it. It might totally go away. So I'm just.
I mean, if you listen to the people that live there, it should go away. But that's not saying that's what's going to happen.
No. But it sounds like you're not in favor of it. That's
Really?
great.
Okay.
It's good. They heard that. Moving on to get to the next person. I'm
All right,
just.
thank
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up, whoever.
Good evening.
Hi.
John Witkowiak, West 192, South 6601, Hillendale. Okay. I was always to the concept democracy, majority rules. Okay? 78%? No. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So how does that affect you? Or is it you want it or you want it, so therefore it happens? Or is...
I can tell you a little bit of how this came about, because I was on Park and Rec at the time that
Okay.
we created this plan. And we actually did send something out to the entire community, asking about the trails and if they enjoyed them, if they wanted to see more and so forth. So you've got 78% of your neighborhood that says no, and we have 88% of the city that
You have that
says these are the
documented?
great.
You have that documented?
I'm
It's
hypothetically
hypothetical again.
speaking,
But
right.
the
I'd have to go
78%
back
no is not a hypothetical.
I
That is
understand.
no,
And
right?
calm, because trust
I'm
me, I
calm,
don't
but-
know yet either of what we're going to do. I'm just saying how it happened. So the majority of the city came back to us and said, yeah, these are great. If we could have them go into every school, it'd be wonderful. That's what brought it to where we are today. Have we put all of them in that we were thinking about? No. Are we going to? Probably not. It's all conceptual. And we're taking feedback right now to understand if we should continue with it or stop. That's why we're listening to all your comments in hopes to get a better understanding of how this is going to work. I've driven down Hillendale a million times because my husband and I go that way when we go to breakfast. And I see a lot of people walking on the street, and it's difficult to get off of the street.
Ma'am, I beg to differ. I
Okay.
live on
And that's
Hillendale.
fine.
I'm out there every
Every
day.
day.
Lee's out there every day.
Okay.
We watched, all right?
Sure.
In a week, 5.
Okay.
Maybe 3 bikes.
And it's probably
okay?
just that,
On a
I'm not talking bikes, I'm talking
On a
walkers.
Sunday, back when I first moved here in 2003, they used to have, we used to have kind of like bike races that used to come down. That, you know, they've chosen another route, okay?
Sure.
We live in a quiet street. It's beautiful. What you guys do with the school, fantastic, okay? Fantastic. Your public works people are amazing, okay? But then we have our neighborhood. We have JDs, okay? You know, you'd have to put a stop and go light because you're going to open a door, you're going to hit somebody on a bike, maybe.
Yeah.
One of those 3 people on a bike. Okay,
I
so
get you.
you're,
Yeah, and
your
I wasn't even
traffic-
talking about
your
bikes, I was just talking
pedestrian
about
traffic
walkers, but.
is not anywhere what you said it is, ma'am. I disagree with you there.
Well, I'm going to admit it was the same ones I saw, but it was every Sunday morning. I saw the same people walking.
Yeah, Sunday morning, okay?
Yeah,
I saw 2
right.
people walk their dogs in the last month.
I got you.
So please.
And I understand, you're against it, and I totally get that. And like I said, I'm not saying where this is going. We're listening, we're asking for comments for that very reason. We want to
I
make
guess I want
that
to know how
decision.
much, what our input is going to go into
Oh, a lot.
a lot.
Yes.
Okay,
We're
because you just
listening.
said that there's a broad area, you know, you just
Yeah, no,
said to me
I-
that we're not the only ones.
I said that's how we got the concept to put it forward. That's not how we decide if it's actually going to happen. But that's what that's what helped us create that map for where everybody citywide would like to see it. Now we're narrowing it down.
Okay. Still didn't answer my question, but thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Leanne Leanne O'Connor. I'm on S71.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
Leanne O'Connor. South 71, West 19524, Maple Court. So I'm right off of Hillendale on the corner. So what my question was with the ditches, is it gonna go off onto like Tans and Maple Road too on that west side? Or is it just on the Hillendale?
We're looking at the ditches just on Hillendale.
Hillendale
But
itself.
again, once we get into a little bit more of the stormwater, I know a couple years ago, before the school kind of got their ponds online, there were we had some major flooding issues or whatever. We're gonna start getting into looking at the storm sewer and where we can make improvements. I can't put a pond there, so it's not gonna solve all the issues, but we're gonna try to do the best we can by making improvements in the ditches where we see that there's issues. Now, it might creep up and down on the side roads a little bit, just depending on if we have to do a little bit on the middle of the road to make it improvements, we might have to go down the side roads a little bit. But that's just standard kind of process.
I was just wondering, because
Yep.
we're right like on the corner.
Yep.
And the plows pile everything up there, so after years, it's kind
Yep.
of worn down. And I also agree, I see a ton of people trying to avoid Hillendale walking their dogs, because I'm right on that corner, and they'll go to walk across the street and go where Muggsy's is and go down that towards the lake, just to avoid Hillendale it's become like a cut through. And I don't feel safe with my kid on that side of the road. And with the people that live directly on Hillendale, I can understand why you don't want anything else taking up the road there already.
Right.
So, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Then, did you? Yeah.
Hi, my name is Debbie Burnt, West 193 South 6839 Hillendale Drive. Just want to let you know my husband and I are against the bike path and the sidewalks and all of that. Most of us people that live on that road purchased houses there for that reason. It's a nice quiet street. We don't want it. And I agree with the gentleman over there about the walkers. There's not that many walkers out there or bike riders out there.
Okay.
Not at all.
Okay. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to us tonight. Dennis Severin, West 195 S7177, Maple Court. We are not on Hillendale. I kind of, excluding the homes I think you alluded to north of the tavern there, that's going to be affected differently. There are 22 homes along the west side. 6 were never invited to this meeting because we do not have Hillendale addresses. But our backyards will be greatly affected if the bike path is passed. So I guess my question, and I spoke with you, John, one night on the phone, and I think, I don't understand why we were not included initially, where over a third of the homes that are going to be affected, and I want to thank the young lady that came to my door to brought this attention to us on Maple Court. So what is the reasoning? It was just
an oversight, because your address was not on there. Now, the next public information meeting, you're all gonna be invited. Now, the good thing, and I talked to everything, is thank God you have really good neighbors, and you guys all talked to you, and I know a bunch of you who were on there gave me your comments too. So I apologize that you weren't invited to this. I'm really glad that you got your comments in and everything, and you will definitely be invited to the next public information meeting.
Yeah, I want to add to what Scott
Go ahead,
said.
John.
Yeah. Not only your call to me, and I appreciate all that, and I was telling Scott when I found this out, we're going to do something better in the future, but we can't do anything but apologize for how it got oversighted this time. But
right, but the whole planning process obviously wasn't thought through.
well, they have a regular way, and I think it's 100 feet of anything that's affected, but they went by addresses. And there was the mistake in using the addresses on Hillendale instead. But generally, it's 100 feet from anything that's coming into zoning. I think the same applies on this, doesn't it, as in the zoning rule?
Yeah.
So it was an oversight, we admit it.
And I got, honestly, you guys all filled out a lot of sheets, even were there. I totally get it, even the ones that are there. In the back, you commented that you didn't want it. You're all included in that whole response with the 70%, whoever filled out the form. So again, apologize. I understand that you are against it. And that's my fault that you weren't invited to the initial meeting. I commend all your neighbors to reach out to each other. It's probably the most powerful thing in the world compared to anything. And that's great that they reached out to you and let you know, and you guys have made the comments.
And I think a lot of the comments that, we purchased this home almost 30 years ago because it's a nice, quiet neighborhood. We like to see it continue that way. I commend the city for reducing the speed limit, even though, that helps a lot. But you still have, but it's like anywhere else in society, people are not going to pay much attention to the law until they get nabbed with it. But thank you for dropping it at least to 30. So, and I would be in favor of dropping it even more. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me. She was actually first. If you could wait just.
I just want to stay up here.
Yeah, just.
Hi, I'm Diane Jackson, West 191, South 6409 Hillendale, JD's Bar. Thanks for the plug over there. Our concerns, obviously, parking lot. What we would stand to lose, probably over half of our spots. Customers going in and out all day. I just don't think it's a good idea. We try to be as quiet as we can in the neighborhood for exactly what everybody's talking about. So we're against it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ben Gerasi, West 191, South 6435 Hillendale. We got a house just north of the school. My wife and I are against this for multiple reasons. One big reason is safety. I find it hard to pull out of my driveway every day, and I feel with a bike path it's going to be twice as long, watching out for pedestrians. Secondly, in hindsight, I probably would have never bought my house had I known that there would be a future bike path, and then I feel like it would be even harder to sell my house with that bike path there, and with diminishing the front yard and whatnot. And I was just wondering, wasn't the original proposal in 2010, wasn't that for the bike path to be on Racine Avenue? Or is it?
There were several bike paths in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay. Yeah, that's all. My wife and I strongly oppose it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Come on up.
Hi, I live at West 194, South 6933 Hillendale. I just want to express my opinion against it, but I have to actually leave, so I wanted to say that.
Thank you.
Thank you. You were next, I believe.
My name is Melanie Sinner. I'm at West 194, South 6961 Hillendale. Tonight, this committee is going to make a decision on the bike trail based on the fact that it was approved by the 2017-2021 Parks and Conservation Plan. The Conservation Plan claims that the citizens prefer the city retain its rural character and open spaces and protect its natural resources. This conservation plan, in conjunction with the 2010 comprehensive plan, evaluated the remaining natural resource base and scenic rural areas and proposed ways to preserve them, which resulted in the City of Muskego Parks and Conservation Plan that you guys discussed earlier that you were a part of. The 2010 comprehensive plan does have the bike trail on Racine Avenue, and the fact that Racine is being paved is the reasoning to put the path on Hillendale versus Racine sounds like a very lame excuse and reasoning to be putting this path on Hillendale. Racine Avenue is such a logical choice as there are no trees to cut down, there's no houses in which to disturb the property's natural drainage, there's no school parking lot driveways to intersect, there's no tavern parking lots to go through, and there are few, if any, driveways to cross over. The fact that Racine Avenue already has bike trails starting at Piggly Wiggly and continuing past the high school makes it a no-brainer to put the path on Racine Avenue. This same conservation committee states that Muskego is fortunate enough to have a rich diversity of natural resources. Muskego's lakes, forests, wetlands, and open spaces are integral to our quality of life, and thus the community recognizes the need to protect, restore, and enhance them, not destroy and ruin them. To put a bike path on Hillendale would mean the destruction of hundreds of trees. A path would destroy the natural drainage of countless properties. My property has been designated wetlands, and there is a stream that runs between my and my neighbor's lot that will no longer have an outlet with a path in its way. And when I have a lake in my yard, I guarantee it's not going to be your problem, it's going to be my problem, and I just don't agree that I should have to deal with that. Putting an 8-foot wide piece of blacktop through 38 people's properties is not my idea of preserving scenic rural Hillendale. I would hope that this committee tonight will hear the pleas of the citizens on Hillendale and be more realistic and sensible than the Parks and Conservation Committee was. A bike path on Hillendale sounds like a good idea on paper. I would question if any member of any committee has actually come out to Hillendale to see where this path would go. There are culverts and ditches, they're deep, they're shallow, there are utility poles, cable boxes, gas lines, mailboxes. Did I mention driveways? One driveway has garbage trucks backing in and out of it at the school. There's parking lots and a tavern. Racine Avenue has none of these obstacles on it. The recommendation of FOTH says that per the 2017-2021 Parks and Conservation Plan, the trail will provide a link to Mill Valley, lake areas, and local businesses. However, they say there is considerable opposition. Mill Valley is an elementary school that doesn't allow students to walk or ride bikes to school, not to mention that no parent would allow their child to be on Hillendale. Most kids would have to cross Hillendale to get to a bike path, which is a dangerous feat for any kid or adult, for that matter. I'm not sure what businesses the plan is referring to. We do have 2 taverns on Hillendale, but I'm not sure they would benefit from a bike path, especially in their parking lot. I went door to door on Hillendale and I talked to 67 people. I realize that you guys, that's not your job. I wouldn't expect you to do that. You guys, I'm sure, are so underpaid for what you do and totally disrespected for what you do. But I did go to 67 houses and 7 people wanted a bike path. 7 people on Hillendale wanted a bike path. 54 didn't want it and 6 weren't sure. I have lived here for 33 years and have seen much development take place. Houses and businesses, that's a part of progress. But the city of Muskego to barge into our quiet lives with an obnoxious, ugly, unwanted bike path, that is just wrong. The people I talked to on Bay Lane, I went and talked to people on Bay Lane. They want the bike path. They live in a more suburban area with houses that are closer together and maybe more conducive to paths. Hillendale is more rural with many multi-acred lots. We love our big yards, our privacy, our trees, and our wildlife. As elected officials of Muskego, I urge you to listen to your constituents. We do not want a bike path on Hillendale. The insanity that has infiltrated our federal and state government does not belong in Muskego. I would hope we are still governed for the people and by the people, not for the mayor, by the mayor. Please take in the information that the residents on Hillendale are telling you tonight. Please listen to us. If we wanted sidewalks and bike paths, we would move to the areas that have them. The citizens on Hillendale want to retain its rural character, like the conservation plan states. A bike path will not preserve or protect our natural resources, as the mission of the 2017-2021 Parks and Conservation Plan states. Just because one committee has made a terrible suggestion that makes no sense doesn't mean that this committee should allow it. Please do the right thing tonight. I keep hearing about the cost of this project. It will be cheaper to put in the path at the time of the reconstruction. It will be even cheaper to put it on Racine Avenue. It's a clean slate. It's pretty much untouched land. There's no utilities, driveways, culverts. And it was part of the 2010 comprehensive plan. So, please do the right thing and the logical thing. Put the bike path on Racine Avenue. Thank you for your time and your concern tonight.
Thank you. Did anybody else want to speak tonight?
My name's Gary Qualheim, and I live at W194S7028 Hillendale Drive in Muskego, Wisconsin. Basically, Scott, you answered most of my questions. I'm all for just the rural. I understand the properties north of Mill Valley, you know, curbs and gutters are the one way to go. It possibly could affect me that way because my house right next to Muggsy's is pretty close to the street. I'm not for that. Why? Because my wife and I, we ride motorcycles. You're going to take a 4 to 6 inch curb, put it in there, and Hillendale's gotten pretty busy. You know, since they put the roundabout, diverted traffic. Now there's no controlled intersection at Racine and College, so everybody's got this little shortcut they take now. It's not, there's too much traffic. I've lived there for 35 years and watched it increase, but you put those curbs in there, I gotta come in my driveway, and my wife and I are on the bike, and what's gonna happen? We gotta negotiate that 4 to 6 inch dip. Something could happen. Could happen to anybody. I'm not for that. I'm against that. I'm also against the bike path. I think we all agree, and everybody in consensus here, that's the wrong thing to do. Mm-hmm. We like the rural, like the trees. This fall after the discussion, you take a look at the trees and the colors and everything down that road. It was just beautiful. There isn't too many roads like that left, and they're getting less and less. So I'd appreciate that you take that in consideration. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think you're up, John.
All right, I've been looking into this. I've been listening to everybody I can listen to, and appreciate all your input. And I realize it's a important issue to all of you here tonight. In looking back into this, we have to acknowledge some things that are brought out historically. You may know more than me because you've been involved with city government longer, but the original plan when it came forth for the entire path planner in the city, to my knowledge, came forth with the idea of putting it on Racine Avenue from the get-go.
It was actually supposed to go down Racine Avenue and then over on Hillendale. It was going to do both.
It was going to do both. Well, there's old maps in the thing. In fact, there was one that was still up on the website when I went into this in my first conversation with Adam about this to discover why did not show it as a proposed route. And when I asked, he said, well, that was just an old map, but it did have the one on Y on that same map. Okay. What I did dig out, and may be very incomplete, but minutes from June 13th, 2011, Park and Recreation Board. Were you on at that time?
I don't remember.
Okay, well, from those minutes, the portion that dealt with this, there had been a request for a trail plan to gain eventual access to the Borst property. That's the new conservancy on Field Drive. But there was discussion about how to do that. This would involve a trail along Hillendale and Field Drives being proposed to include in the Parks and Open Space Plan, which should come before the board in October, mentioning that the trail sections are prioritized up to the Common Council on what they are willing to fund, and therefore the aldermen should be discussing it if something they want to do up front as part of the borrowing plan. When they borrow the funds, they would get the access to in right-of-way rather than having to wait for the access to the property. The inquiries about this was there enough room along Hillendale? They were advised at that time by the park director and the planning director it would be easier to go in by way of Hillendale, Field Drive being more difficult. Now, I'm not sure exactly what they're referring to.
Yeah, I was not on during that discussion.
Another one on the panel at that time suggested going in the back way and possibly having costs recouped by a developer. Well, I pretty well built out now. There's not many developers to appeal to now. Then it was asked if the property owners along Hillendale had been advised that there may be a trail going along the front of the property. It would be advisable for the alderman to let them know. And then discussion of this item was to be continued. Subsequently, it went forward and was adopted by the Park and Rec. I'm not sure exactly when that was actually accomplished, to put the plan in motion for Hillendale and this section of Hillendale. But the plan was then to bring it from College End all the way down and cross where Hillendale crosses Racine, go on down to Field and go down Field to the conservation property. That's my understanding. Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is where it came from and how it got put into the plan. And then so we're in a position where then it was carried forward with the 2017 and going forward. This is probably the roots of it, where it came from. With that in mind and with what everybody is saying, I'm prepared to say that we should offer the suggestion to rescind the idea of putting it on Hillendale and revert back to putting it on Y.
I was just going to, calm down. So I just had her bring up the map, and so you can see where all these lines have been formed way back when. And no.
There's a lake in the middle.
Believe it or not, a lot of people really enjoy these. I understand you guys aren't one of them. I get that. But many people in the community really do enjoy them. So anyway, what's your proposal, John?
My proposal is to rescind putting it on this section of Hillendale and revert to Y. If we eventually connect to the Borst property, that's fine. Mm-hmm. We can go down that direction in the future. I realize it's putting it back as far as gaining a loop. We have not gone across College. We have a lot of Martin to worry about yet. Mm-hmm. We're a long ways off of making this effective. So this will sit here for many years without anybody but the very local people having access to it even.
Right.
So in the long run, I can't see this as being real valuable to us to go ahead at this time and put it on Hillendale. Okay. At least this section of it.
And that is your motion?
That's my motion.
I will second that. All in favor?
Wait, one thing. Are you guys okay with going through rural cross section? I want to
yes.
make sure.
Yeah.
Listen, we do have to separate. Now we have another. Yes. Yes, you can.
This should only pertain to Hillendale and not to Y.
Correct.
Yep.
I'm sorry. Yes, we had to take Y out of the picture because we are only talking about Hillendale.
Okay, the only way that would be incorporated is if we have to go back through what is in the park plan, we have to rescind something.
Right. Well, we have to.
However,
right
that
now,
would be properly handled. I'm willing to have it modified according to it.
Okay, so but for tonight, all we're doing is we're just denying.
Yeah, to set this plan forward, then the motion would be to eliminate this from the.
So, your motion should probably be to move forward with the rural plan.
Rural plan without
for the
trail.
road and remove the path.
Yeah.
Correct?
Correct.
Correct.
That's my motion, yes.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
It is done. All right.
One thing, just let you know, after it goes to committee, it goes to January 8th, it will go to Common Council for their vote. Once that's done, then it'll be all official. I try to let people know that this is just an advisory.
This is a recommendation to the Common Council now, because that does not, we don't have the power to make that decision and make it stick here.
It takes,
January 8th.
perfect.
Perfect.
Okay, all good? You bet. All right.
And we appreciate you all coming out. This has been very good discussion.
Where are we? Okay, thank you. Okay, yes, moving on, new business placed on file, Sandy Beach.
So, if you guys notice, Sandy Beach Bridge is down. So we got detour routes of everything out there. Probably about 4 years ago, there was a cost out there for $300,000 to do that beach. That's totally not right, because they already did the demolition work. So what I'm looking to do is, I'm going to get a bunch of cost estimates to you and then come back to you and at least give you a legitimate cost estimate. And then you guys can decide whether or not you want to try to replace it or not. Also, the other thing with why it could be cheaper is We Energy says all it needs to do is hold pedestrian. We don't need to run cars or anything over it. You know, I've checked into all that stuff, but I want to give you a fair number, and then you guys can decide whether or not you want to bring it to capital in the following year and stuff like that.
Does it have to be a bridge style, or can it be culvert style, or what are they now saying?
It could be a lot of things. You know, it could be just 2 culvert pipes for all we know.
Well, we had discussion on that in the past, that they were not gonna allow us to go the cheaper way.
Yeah.
If I recall right.
We did.
But We Energy said that all it needs to do is hold pedestrians.
Well, right.
So,
So there's a chance for it to be restored in a way for the pedestrian.
in a very, very cheap way. So.
That sounds good.
Yep. I just want to bring up that I'll bring it again. I'm getting some cost estimates and stuff like that. So.
Very good.
That's all I have.
Excellent. Then any other communications or miscellaneous business is authorized by law? Nothing. I'd be looking for a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. I get all the